I want a room for scrapbooking.
Definitely a man cave.
Finding your dream home can be exciting, but it's also highly competitive. Getting there quickly can mean the difference between owning the home of your dreams and settling for second best. Owners.com gives you free access to the latest MLS listings, plus exclusive for sale by owner properties that other brokers might not show you.
I love our new home.
The outdoor rain shower is epic.
It's your dream home. See how you might save thousands with Owners.com. Savings will vary and are not available on all properties. Other limitations apply. See Owners.com for more.
Welcome, everybody, to HACC Radio Show, Social Consciousness. And we're about to interview a couple of gentlemen in regards to the latest incidents or situation that we've had lately, within the country. We're going to have Greg Bernard with us today, and as well as Dr. Paul Mocombe. Those two gentlemen are going to be discussing a couple issues and couple ideas and incidents that we've had to deal with within the last week or so around the nation, around the country. And we hope that everybody will get to enjoy what we're about to discuss, and everybody will definitely somehow feel connected or can relate to all the things that we're going to be discussing here. Is Paul on? Dr. Paul Mocombe, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here with you.
All right, sir. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm all right. And yourself, bro?
I'm good. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio with us tonight. And as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Paul Mocombe is here with us here, guys. And basically, I'm going to let Dr. Mocombe introduce himself, at length and tell us exactly who he is, and what he's been doing and so on. So, Dr. Mocombe, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Terry, for having me on. My name is Paul Mocombe. I'm a philosopher and sociologist by training. I teach philosophy, sociology, and courses in Haitian studies. My wife and I also run a foundation, a reading foundation, which is based here in South Florida. And the foundation basically is the Mocombe Foundation. And we donate my reading curriculum that I developed in grad school to inner city schools to help young blacks close the achievement gap. And we also donate tablets to my village in Haiti, school supplies and tablets annually. So it's a pleasure to be with Terry and the other guests this evening on the show.
Great. So, Dr. Mocombe, if I understand quite well, you've pretty much been working around youth within the country, you and your wife, then?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Dr. Mocombe, as you all are aware, there's been a lot of things going on within the country within the last week or week and a half or so. And at some point, we all have to be concerned, not just me and you and others out there, that are having to see those things on national TV and so on. We all have to be concerned. And that's basically why, or the reason why, we're behind this microphone here today, talking to each other and trying to see how affected we are by everything that's been going on, and whether or not at some point we can come to some type of solution to this ongoing problem that we've been facing in this country.
I don't know how much we're going to be able to come out with a solution, brother, but no, I feel you. We all have been personally, especially if you're a young black male or an old black man in this country we call the USA.
Dr. Mocombe, before we go any further, let me introduce our other guest, Mr. Greg Bernard. He's on the line with us, and I'd like for Mr. Bernard to also go ahead and tell us about who he is. And I understand that Mr. Bernard lives actually in the Dallas area, and he may have been exposed or might have been out there on the ground floor when everything happened last week. So, Mr. Bernard, how are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Gregory Bernard Smith II. Currently, right now, I'm a construction superintendent, graduated from the University of Arkansas, Little Rock, with my construction management degree. I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been living down here in Dallas about 2 months now. And pretty much I started an organization 50 for 50, pretty much trying to teach average youth and young black men coming out of high school trades instead of just sending them to high school and saying, well, why don't you go get a degree and you don't have a trade? Because at the end of the day, if something happens with the economy, as long as you have a trade, you have something fly, and you always be successful. I was downtown marching right in front with the leaders. Dominique is one of them. Pretty much walking right there with those guys, and pretty much with a nonviolent protest, pretty much trying to get the point across that we will not settle for anything less than justice. I most definitely understand the anger that a lot of people have been feeling for the last few years now. So pretty much that's me in a nutshell.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bernard. So we're going to go ahead and start with Dr. Mocombe. Dr. Mocombe, why don't you tell us a little bit what type of personal effect that the current social crisis in this country have had on you within the last couple of weeks or so?
I'll say, like everyone else, it's a feeling of anger, a feeling of despair, especially with someone with my background and, growing up in Haiti, coming to this country and understanding what my ancestors fought for. The Haitian Revolution is centered fighting against white supremacy, capitalism, and a form of barbaric Christianity that allowed us to enslave our own brothers and sisters. So to come to a country at 6 years old, 7 years old, and basically I was shielded from any sort of racism per se. My parents did a great job, educating us about our history and the knowledge about the Haitian Revolution, and a sense of pride that I always carried with me that, hey, because of what my ancestors did, not only am I on par with white folks, but what my ancestors accomplished is something that will never be accomplished ever again. And to see young brothers and sisters being gunned down defensively, it attacks our sense of self, my sense of self as a person of African descent. I don't like using black because that takes away from the fact that we are people of African descent. We were prisoners of war that were enslaved, captured, and enslaved, and we fought. And I'm a fighter, and I want to see our people fight against what's going on, and I instill in my sons, we constantly have to be fighting against these three aspects of a despicable capitalist world system that threatens not only humanity but the earth. So, it's just been a sense of despair and nothingness. A sense of nihilism has permeated the entire social system. And you can see the frustration not only, and I'm going to end on this, on Friday evening, my oldest son asked us to use our car to go out because he was afraid to go out in his own car. He has a black Acura, and he was afraid that, he's a target, a young black man in a black Acura, that he would be pulled over. So, it's a sense of despair, nothingness, and nihilism that permeates the whole social system, and it's permeating each one of us. So I'm going to end on that.
All right, great. Thank you. And Mr. Bernard, we're going to go ahead and ask you the same question. Just tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, about what kind, if any, of personal effects that the current crisis have had on you.
Well, personally on me, I really can't just speak on personally me. Me being out in the community out here in Dallas, especially being from Little Rock and having a lot of people calling me, a lot of people speaking to me to where I'm leading rallies, to where I'm out there and I'm speaking to people. And I'm out downtown in Dallas with a bullhorn screaming at the Attorney General. I'm pretty much a voice who aren't able to be heard. So what I know and what I feel is the same way as what they're feeling is despair. It's like it's fear and it's despair, and it's like, well, when is it going to stop? And it's like, and now it's coming to the point where I guess I didn't elaborate on this. I should have. I'm a gang member, not formally, I'm an educated black man now. I use black for the simple fact of, I am what you say I am. So I am an educated black man. I'm from the inner city of Little Rock, Arkansas, which is pretty much one of the cities that had more gang participation and gang violence coming up from the years from the 80s to this point in time. And I'm talking to people to where it's like, well, yeah, I understand in the community we're killing each other. So it's one of the things somebody that lives like me, you shelter from the news because you didn't watch the news. So it's like, but now when it's saying, well, now that we're trying to stop the killing of ourselves, now we're getting killed by police. And it's one of those situations where now you have kids who have grown up in the inner city, urban areas, or in gangs and saying, well, we're trying to change, but now we can't change because we're still being oppressed. So now they're looking at the situation of where, well, I have nothing to lose. And it's hard for community leaders like myself and others, especially my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, to sit there and try to talk to average youth or young kids coming up who literally are like, well, I want to go at the cops. I literally had about 10 kids screaming, 10 teenagers screaming, hey, man, I'm locked and loaded. I don't have no fear. I don't got no daddy. I don't got nothing to lose because, like, we're going to die anyway. And it's like when you hear them talking like that because they feared, and it's like, and like I told somebody, once you lose hope, what do you latch on to? And now a lot of people are latching on to vengeance. Now, me personally being down there seeing the melee in downtown Dallas and then me experiencing racial profiling as far as being the type of guy I am or where I came from, you don't have any hope anymore. Now you just latching on to vengeance. I don't agree with the cops being shot because I have family members who are police officers who pretty much try to guide me and try to keep me out of trouble, but to their fail at times. But now when you sit here and you look at these kids, I know where they're coming from, and I know both sides of the spectrum. And it's like now they're angry, they have no hope. All they do is see is vengeance, and they want retaliation. And now it's like, well, what do you do now? How do you talk to those people who lost hope and all they can latch on to is vengeance? So that's how I feel as far as being a voice for the people, because I know exactly how they complain to me and what they're complaining about, and they feel vengeance. It's past feeling sorry. It's past please stop. It's to the point where it's becoming, well, all we have is vengeance. It's like, well, if I'm gonna die anyway, I'm gonna die my way. So that's how people are feeling right now.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Now, Dr. Mocombe, I'm going to go back to you. Earlier you mentioned the struggle that the Haitians have had to go through in the past in order for them to gain their independence and to prove to the world that they couldn't be slaves forever for the rest of their lives. And I'm particularly quite aware of that particular time in history. And it's something that I myself cherish about the Haitian people and the struggle. And they're still struggling to an extent down there where they are. But, Mr. Paul, the question I'm about to ask you has a lot to do also with what Mr. Bernard just said. I'm sorry, Dr. Paul Mocombe. The role of the police towards our citizens, our community, because Mr. Bernard just elaborated on the fact that blacks have been killing blacks for a while now. We all know that. All three of us here talking, we know that. We're aware of it. And to an extent, I want to say that each one of us here have concerns about that and have probably tried to address this particular issue. But as Mr. Bernard said, it's another thing when you see police officers who took an oath, doing the same thing to us, to black people out there. So he said himself that he's got family members who are also part of the police force. So, Dr. Mocombe, I'd like for you to elaborate for me, if you may, on what you think is the role of the police towards the citizens and the community at large, please.
All right. And this is what we have to understand is the fact that you cannot conceptualize the role of the police force as separate from the social system which they constitute. What that means is the origins of the police or the cops, whatever you want to call them, stems, number one, from slave patrols during the 18th century, 19th century in the U.S. and they also evolved as a private security force to protect the private property of the wealthy. So the police force and the police institution is embedded in the system of capitalism and private property. So they're in place not to protect and serve, which is what we would call in Marxist philosophy ideology. They're technically, because the police force is an ideological apparatus, they're in place in a social system intended to protect the private means of production and to keep what they would call the undesirables from contaminating or taking the means of production. So the police system emerges alongside the system of slavery, and it emerges alongside the capitalist social system. So the reason why you have a system in place that is killing and targeting and maiming young black males, young poor black men, and in some oftentimes rich black people, but because they have the means to fight against such a social system, it doesn't impact them as much. Not to say that it doesn't impact rich blacks, but the reason why you have a system that's targeting young black males is because they have carte blanche to do so, because they see these, number one, you live in a system that everything is a commodity, and it's a fictitious commodity, because how can you commodify a person? And that's what there's a Hungarian-American anthropologist by the name of Karl Polanyi. He said the problem with capitalism is it commodifies three things that were never meant to be commodified. And those three things he calls fictitious commodities. You commodify labor, which is a human being. You turn a human being into a thing, and you say this thing has a value that you can place on it, a monetary value, and then if that person has no skills, they're worthless. That's insane. So the young black poor boy who has no skills to participate in the capitalist system is basically a worthless, as Hillary Clinton calls them, a super predator. That's insane. How do you commodify a person? Then you commodify land. The thing we need to survive on this earth, you commodify it. You say, you get a piece of property, you live on that piece of property, but you're not allowed to grow your own crops or do anything. You have to go to the market. That's insane. You displace the people off the land to take the land to do whatever the capitalist needs to do with the land. And that's the process of gentrification, which impacted many of the inner cities, took jobs away from the inner cities, and you left a desolate land with people with no skills. And then you say that in order for them to have any worth in the society, you have to pay them with money. Money is just a simple piece of paper. But you commodify it, it becomes a commodity that people are struggling to get simply to survive in this social system we call capitalism. And what you have in place, you have the police force in place to keep the riffraff, the people with no skills and a desolate land, no money, away from the wealthy because they're super predators. So you have a system that is a fictitious system that basically is intended to dehumanize and commodify an individual. So put all of that together, you give the police force a carte blanche to attack and do whatever they want to people who are a commodity with no skills in a desolate land. So this is the system we're fighting against, that dehumanizes young black males because they have no skills, because they're in a desolate area, they have no money, and they become a thing that we can use for sports, for entertainment, etc. So we have to realize the police force, the social system, the history of this country, all of that is intertwined. And we're fighting against a social system. We have to disembed people from this capitalist system in order to establish an alternative. We need a transformative social system to change this commodification of the human being.
All right,
brother.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Mocombe. I definitely understand where you're coming from. But before I go to Mr. Bernard, in reality, you know, in a nutshell, you basically told us that that particular oath that the police officers have taken to protect and to serve, they are not acting according to that particular oath. It's as if they're going against that oath. But I'm going to jump to Mr. Bernard. Mr. Bernard, I'm going to ask you the same question that we just asked Dr. Mocombe as to what do you think is the role of the police officers towards citizens or towards the community out there?
All right. Their role. Okay, their role that, as you said, is on paper versus their role and what they're going to do are two totally different things. It's, to me, what I've understood and what I've been paying attention to is some of the fact that it's rich and poor. Now, as you see, Mexicans and black people, we most definitely get the brunt of the punishment or the death that's been passed out. But at the end of the day, when you look at statistics and they say, well, Mexicans are number one people who died this year, past year, due to the hands of police, then it was white people, and then it was black people. I mean, I heard that spewed out there, and I'm like, okay, if that's how you all go with it, then I look at it and I say, okay, what's the social class of the people that died at the hands of the police? And then you look at it and say, okay, well, Mexicans, more than likely they're poor, but you look at the social class, and you look at the social class, and I heard growing up in Arkansas, they say, well, behave more than black people is poor white people. And then it's like, wow. So you hear that growing up, and you hear that plenty of times. They'll ring it loud out there. And then it's like when you start to understand the concept of the police, and as you hear what the gentleman before me stated, well, it was police and slaves in general at first. So it's like, well, poor white people were indentured servants, if you look at them that way. Mexicans pretty much weren't here. Well, they weren't here, but they weren't here. They weren't really a factor in U.S. history, as you can tell. Then you have black people who were pretty much slaves. So right now, it depends on, are you rich or are you poor? It's like, well, lower income areas or the poor areas that they claim, or the ghetto or projects or the hood or whatever they choose to call them, they patrol the control. It's pretty much trying to, I know I grew up and I used to think upset, like it's like y'all patrolling to keep us in, like you don't want us to leave. So it's like you patrolling to control us, and then you go uptown. If you go uptown, you go to North Park area, you go to Chenal and Marmel and in Arkansas area, the upper echelon areas, and then it's served to protect to serve to protect, call it how you want to call it, and with whichever order you know what I'm saying you deem fit. So the role of the police is pretty much is a gray area. For all now, it's like, well, how much money you got? And then it's sad to say, well, are you black? You black and you white? And then it's like, how much money you have? And it's like, well, if you have no value to society, as he was saying, no value to society, then you are worthless to me. And then it's like, well, just like how they demonize black men, Mexican men, or they demonize white men who died by the hands of police to justify, well, he was just another miscreant that we got rid of. So, no, let's not prosecute the police. Why prosecute the police? He was a this, or he was a that, or he had a record, this, that, and the other. So right now, that's the problem with the people now. We don't understand what's the role of the police. Are you serving me, protecting me, or are you controlling me right now? And it's like, well, you come to the inner city and you go on fishing expeditions as a police officer, and I hope the police officer listen. It's not just me making a big gripe, but it's like, well, if you fishing expeditions, okay, your license plate light out. Not your tail light, but your license plate light out. So I pulled you over. Or it's you walking down the street and it's where you going? Or why? Well, let me see your ID. Or why? What I do? And it's like one of those situations where it's control to patrol or patrol to control. And now we're sitting here trying to figure out, well, what's the police role? But if you have to ask that question, therein lies a bigger problem right there. Or what's the role? Or what do you think the role is? Or what are the people that you associate yourself feel that the role is of the police? We don't know. Because it depends on where you at, what you look like, where you live, your social class, what school you went to, what you're allowed to do. And that's a sad situation right now. So I would like somebody to enlighten me with the police role in society and in inner city and and just period in the United States of America, because right now it feels like it's slave patrol. The poor, the shut-in, the black, the Mexicans, they're the ones who are getting punished right now. They are the ones that are getting harassed. They are the ones that are dying. We're not hearing anybody talk about anybody in North Park getting pulled over unjustly or having to record themselves because they're scared of the police officers, or we don't hear about anybody in Montmell or Chenal, Arkansas screaming police brutality or somebody died. You don't hear about that. And therein lies a bigger problem. It's either control or serve to protect. But either or, we need you all to do the same thing in every community where that community can thrive and become better.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. I clearly understand where you're coming from. But just before I move on to Dr. Mocombe with my next question, but if I clearly understand what you both have elaborated on, it would be fair to say that this problem in this country goes beyond just white and black. And as I've been doing within the last few weeks, months, years, if you want to say, on Facebook, I've been calling on to my white counterparts, friends, associates, colleagues, etc., to get involved, to speak up, to voice against some of the injustices that are taking place, and to show their concern, because I'm afraid this thing is going to go to the next side. It's going to move on. At some point, if we don't put a stop to the brutality, it's not just going to be young black men getting gunned down. Because if I understand clearly what you just said, both of you, there's also classism going on in this struggle, whereas the rich is totally immune from anything, from any consequences, from having anything bad happen to them, from being gunned down and so on and so on. When I say rich, I mean black, white, Hispanic, rich people. But when it comes to poor blacks, white, Mexican, Puerto Rican and so on, they tend to be affected by this. It's not just us blacks getting gunned down or being affected by this. So the problem goes even further than just a black and white issue. And that's what I wanted to bring to the forefront, to the public to understand, because I posted a couple of articles earlier on my community page, and it relates to exactly what I just said as far as whites having to stand up and speak up against the violence, the brutality. So I'm going to move on to my other question for Dr. Mocombe. Dr. Mocombe, what do you think, what kind of impact do you think the latest events have had on the country as a whole, as well as the black community? If you could please tell us.
Great question, but you hit the nail on the head, Terry. Again, this isn't nothing new. You see pundits on TV talking about it as though this is a new phenomenon. It's not a new phenomenon. It's embedded in the business cycle, in the market society. The problem is you've commodified people, you've commodified the land, you've commodified money, and you have people struggling to obtain skills, but in the same breath, the society is not protecting the people from poverty. The society is not protecting the people from the vagaries of capitalism. This widening gap between those who have and those who do not have. Instead of protecting the people, you use the police force to protect things. You protect their private property. So what you find now, what's going on throughout the world, is not only the U.S., it's an emergence of fascism and right-wing governments who are people like Trump, and I include Hillary Clinton in this too, because she's just as much a fascist as Trump is with her super predator comments, etc. But what you have is, instead of addressing the issues of inequality, what has emerged is they're addressing crime. They're addressing the problems that capitalism. They're not addressing the problems that capitalism is creating. They're addressing. They're going on down the line of continually protect the wealthy and private property. So that leaves no choice but for the masses to take to the streets, all over the UK. I have my co-author, Dr. Carol Tomlin, who's calling me and telling me to be safe. The blacks in the UK are protesting for us here in the U.S. So it's having a tremendous impact, not only in terms of race. We have to look at, because it's a larger issue. It's not only a black issue. Yes, it's coming off as a racial issue because in America, the majority of your downtrodden and poor are in the ghettos and are black. But throughout the world, you have a mixture of people. You have poor Indians in Honduras and the native people in Honduras enduring the same thing. You have people in Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela. So we have there's movement against this disembeddedness of the economy from society. Instead of commodifying people, we need to start treating people as though they're human beings and provide for everyone a decent home, a decent living, the right to have a land, the right to access to education, health care, etc. But there's a counter movement. There's a movement against all of these. The rise of fascism is, okay, we don't care about all of that. We need to protect those who have, and we have to move away from that. So I don't see no end to this because since 2008, we've been in a recession. So from 2008 to the present, it's simply getting worse. And it's either going to be in 1968, there's this mass movement against capitalism and the effects of the vagaries of capitalism. It appears as though we're going back to 1968. And the people, we have to overlook the attempt to racialize the event and look at it as this is class warfare. We have to realize that black people are not the only ones enduring the vagaries of capitalism, and we have to start to form coalitions throughout the world with our brothers and sisters in Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, everywhere. We have to overlook the fascist attempt to racialize this and say, hey, this is an issue of poverty and the social system we are using to organize humanity. It is a problem. We're destroying the earth, we're destroying humanity, and we have to fight against this system. So we have to start to form coalitions and unite against this.
It's fair to say that you not only answer the question as it relates to the country or the black community, but you even took it further. You've included the whole world in this problem and this issue that we are confronted by. And because you mentioned a couple of countries, especially in the Latin America, whereas the people of those countries are having to deal, with the same problems that we are facing here in the United States. So you took it even further. And I'm just going to jump to Mr. Bernard with the same question. Mr. Bernard, tell us, please, if you may, what kind of impact the latest events around the country have had, on the country as a whole, but also on the black community, if you may.
What was the impact it had? What?
The impact it's had, the latest events, the impact it's had on the country, as well as on the black community.
Okay, well, looking at it, the impact it's had is dividing the country. And it's dividing the country. A lot of people are getting divided for the simple fact that other classes don't understand why people are protesting or don't understand why people are rallying. We're trying to rally together. We're trying to unify. The impact or the best thing you can do as a people is to unify with each other. And now seeing the problem that we're not completely unified and we're sitting here lost right now, like a lost people who are lost people, as a lot of people have been coming to me so fluently talking about. The impact on the country is pretty much the country is shutting down. Pretty much other countries are looking at us as if we're weak. Then especially looking at it, seeing this election year, it's like, okay, well, that's right pickings now. The country is getting divided right now. If we stay on the same path that we're on right now, it seems like within 2-3 years or 4 years, especially in a changeover of presidents, especially if we get the worst case that, like you said, a fascist of Donald Trump was to win the election, then that would divide the country even more, causing even more rioting and protesting, even more and division in the country. Then that for it leaves us in a state of rich and poor again, or master and slave. And I know people are like, well, that's sort of a bit radical, But I mean, if you play chess and you look and see how far or where this could go, it seems like, well, if, like he stated so eloquently, if they're protecting property and land, and therefore it puts you in a bind of where, well, where can I go? Or what can I do now? Then you look back at gentrification, and it's like, well, I have nowhere to go, but then I have no land. Then if I have nowhere to go or have nowhere to land, I have no land to farm. I have no land to feed myself, seeing that I can't work because where am I going to work at? It's one of those situations where I sit back and I look at a chess game that's being played, and I say, well, right now minorities are being played, but as I've been speaking for the last 3-4 weeks, when it seems like it dawned on me from studying and exercising my mind, it is a classism. It's more classism to me personally than racism. But now it seems to the point to where the country's looking at poor people as the bad and the rich people are silent, because it seems like their pawns or the police are out there, and now we have no avenues to go down. I understand he's saying, well, we need to gather, we need to have coalitions, but how do we get people together for coalitions is the problem that we're having right now. I mean, if you look at Chicago and you see black-on-black crime, it's like I can't really knock somebody who says, well, how do you say Black Lives Matter when it's so much black-on-black crime? Understandably, I get it. But me personally coming from the inner city, me personally coming from the hood or the ghetto, it's like, well, if I don't have a TV or if I don't watch TV, I don't watch news, you got to understand a lot of people in the city are closed off to what's going on. They know what's going on in their neighborhood or in their 3-4 block radius, and that's all they know. And then it's like, well, if we sit back and we talk about the injustices going on in society and nobody goes down there and say, well, hey, folks, this is what's going on. This is why it's going on. It's really classism, or it's rich-poor, even though it could be black-white, or it's rich-poor and it's black-white. You have nothing. You have no money. You have no economy. You have no revenue, so therefore you're worth nothing. But if you was to turn around and you was to invest in you all, in yourselves, invest in your own community, then now you have your, because like I say, the person who has the most power is the person you invest your money in. So therefore, coalition, nobody knows this. Yeah, we're sitting here and we're educated. We're all college educated. We all work in a system, a corporate system. We all are exposed to different things because we're looking for it or we're searching for it because we got ourselves out of that hellish state of mind of where this is all we have, or this is all I'm giving, and this is all I got, and this is all I ever will be. So the impact is negative. What can we do to change the impact is pretty much educate and teach people, because as you can see, we have a society of fools, therefore leaving us exposed. And that's the biggest problem I have right now. Can I speak on the impact? The impact is different for everybody. Impact for what I see coming from the inner city and working with at-risk youth and still dealing with gangs is, all we know is police brutality, we're getting harassed, we're steady dying. Even when we try to do something good for the community, we still get set back 100 years because we still look at if we don't matter.
I got you, Mr. Bernard. I mean, you said a lot here, and I totally understand where you're coming from. And I also feel your frustration with everything that's been going on, especially with you having been exposed to what took place recently in Dallas. But you said a couple things that really caught my attention here. And before I jump to Dr. Mocombe, you said something about the chess game that's being played with the people. And when I say people, I don't just mean black people, with everybody. And I've been feeling exactly the same way, that there's a game that's being played here, and a lot of us are not quite aware of what kind of game it is. But you defined it perfectly by using the word chess game. And you also mentioned the fact that some people, and I myself have said that in the past, in terms of Black Lives Matter, I'm very black and white in my thinking. I don't like to sugarcoat anything. I just tell it like it is or like I see it or understand it. And I've always said that even though I feel like Black Lives Matter is quite relevant for the struggle that we are having right now, but I've always questioned about the fact that why it took them so long to come out and start making so much noise, because we've been having blacks on blacks crimes taking place for a while now. And black or so-called black leaders have refrained from their responsibilities for a while up until now when we start getting gunned down by police officers out there. So I do question Black Lives Matter at times, from time to time, and I understand sometimes people on the other side, white people, do criticize or point the finger at Black Lives Matter also, but that does not mean that they don't have a cause or they are irrelevant. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm going to jump to Dr. Mocombe and ask the last question. I would ask both of you the same question. But Dr. Mocombe, based on everything you just shared with us, you've been, dealing with this situation. Personally speaking, you're quite aware of what we got going on here. You work with minority, you work with the poor, the impoverished, you work with the youth around the community. Dr. Mocombe, can you tell us what do you think some of the ideas to improve the situation, what do you think they should be or they could be?
Ooh, bro, that is a loaded question, Terry. To begin with, we have to decommodify certain things, and I know this is very revolutionary. Capitalism is coming to an end. There is no doubt about it. The young brother, Mr. Bernard, called it a game, a chess game. Yes, we're part of a language game that was created 400 years ago that says basically the game is we got to commodify the land and we got to use money to ascertain whatever you need. So those who have the quote-unquote money, the paper, will be able to afford and enjoy the luxuries of this earth, and those who do not will basically be set aside. So we have to now start to think about decommodifying these things, decommodifying the land. To begin with, the earth cannot sustain how we are presently organizing society. We are polluting the environment. Our ecological system cannot sustain this way of life. And as though our leadership it's an oversight for most of the leaders. We just had a climate summit in Paris, and basically the U.S. government did not implement anything. We basically are at the clock is about to hit midnight pretty soon on us. We have to start to decommodify human beings. We cannot place a value on a person. That is insane. You're telling me I'm worth this much, You're saying a young black boy is only worth something if he has a football or a basketball in his hand. If he has an education, he's a danger to society, as Malcolm X said. So we have to start to decommodify the land, decommodify labor, us as human beings, and start to constitute a different form of social system. There's got to be a battle. We may even go to war. We may be looking at if the earth doesn't destroy us first, but we're heading towards midnight. On a global scale, what's happening at the local level is also happening at the global level. You have to see how America is positioning itself against Russia, China, India, and it's basically problematic. We're going to war to steal oil. We're at midnight. Noam Chomsky, the great Noam Chomsky, wants to say we're minutes away from midnight, but I think we're about there. So we have to start to, unless we change the way we organize the world and society and our relationship with one another, there cannot be any changes. During the Civil Rights Movement, there's this fight for equality of opportunity, recognition, and distribution. But that was a mistake because as Martin Luther King said, he feared when prior to him being assassinated, he said, I fear that I'm integrating my people into a burning house. And we have been integrated into a house that is burned and it's basically burning to the ground. So we have to reconstitute this house and rebuild it on a system that is based on fairness, that is based on justice, and that's based on equality. That's the bottom line. If we want to maintain the capitalist system and in the same breath integrate into it, it will not work. We're at midnight right now. So that's where I end this, brother.
All right. Dr. Mocombe, I really understand your response, and I really like the way you responded to the question. And before I jump to Mr. Bernard, you're going to have about 6 or 7 minutes to answer the same question. And as you are done answering, I would like for both of you guys to stay on the line for a minute or two so I could wrap up and close everything. But Mr. Bernard, just go ahead and tell us also, based on your understanding of the situation, based on the fact that you're out there in the street, you work with the youth, you work with all types of individuals out there, and to an extent, if I'm not mistaken, even some of the gang members that you are also out there working with them, trying to turn their lives around, and so on and so on. Tell me, based on your conversation with the people out there in the street, and especially with the youth, what do you think should some of the ideas should be to improve the situation that we have going on here in this country?
Well, first and foremost, to change it, community leaders or community organizers are pretty much people who have some kind of knowledge of the situation of what's going on need to come together so we can go teach people. If people are out here in society, they don't know the civil rights, civil liberties, or their constitutional rights. Yeah, pretty much, as I look at it, was designed for black people anyway. In the same sense, when you look at it, they don't know. They don't know what they're allowed to do. They don't know what they can do. They don't know that they can call the police on the police. They don't know if they can ask for a sergeant or a supervisor. As of right now, what I'm understanding, what I'm paying attention to when I go around and I talk to gang members, I talk to little old ladies who are stressed out about seeing death, or I talk to white people who come to me and say, man, I hate what's going on, or I understand you all's pain. It's just people are not knowing. People are uneducated. And yeah, I understand that we're preaching for equality, but just like he said, Martin Luther King said, it's leading his people into a burning house. Sometimes should we be separate? We should be separate. And I know people are saying, well, separatism is not the route to go. Well, yes, it is. In order for you to have yourself stable, you have to set yourself aside from society and trying to ask for equality. You have to set yourself aside and say, well, you have to get yourself on a level playing field before you can even ask for equality. It's pretty much going to the situation of how I say, well, you're rich and you're poor. Well, if I'm poor, I can't go to a rich person to ask them for help. It's like, well, I have some kind of asset, or I have this amount, or I have a down payment to get a car. It's pretty much how I buy a car. I got a down payment to buy a car. I can't just walk in and say, well, I want a car. They're going to say, well, what you have for the car? Well, it's like, well, if you don't have any revenue, if you don't have any equity, or if you don't have an economy of your own, how can you say, well, put me on a level playing field with you and let me have some kind of equality? I'm not going to give you equality because you don't have anything to give me back for it. And right now I have more than you, so I have power. And then that's when it comes to where, well, this is my land, this is my property. Okay, well, I pay the most taxes, or I'm going to give the most money, or I'm going to donate the most money. So now I want the police to protect me. Just like in the situation with Hillary, they say, well, she's taking money from lobbyists, or she's taking money from people on Wall Street, so they're in her pocket, or she's in their pocket, so she's going to owe them favors, so we shouldn't vote for her. Okay, well, that's life, point blank, period. And it's sad that it's, what can you do for me now? And it's sad that we put value in land, we put value in money, we put value in clothes, but we don't put value in people. Now we devalue these people. Now we walk around here and we die by the wayside like we still 3/5 of a man. So with the community, nobody knows. Nobody knows what happened in the past that led up into the future, or led up to the present that's going to lead up into the future. They don't know where they came from. They don't know what they can do. They don't know what laws been established. There's been laws put into play, and nobody can even tell you what's been put into play because nobody goes to vote. And then everybody's talking about, well, everybody went to the polls to vote for a black president, but nobody goes to the local polls to vote. And then it seems like we sit back there and I watched a disturbing video today that I was sent by another organizer, and he was pretty much saying, well, you telling me that legislators sit in a room with big business and they come up with laws, they come up with laws to vote on. So now we sit in this situation where we have no power. We have no power with the powers that be, or we have no power with the rich. So therefore, you have to separate your economy or build your economy in order for you to have something to come to the plate and say, well, give me equality. That's how wars are stopped. Well, what do you have? Or how wars are prevented? What do you have? What can we barter with? Because right now we have nothing to barter with. We're poor. We're behind. We have no power, and we're divided. So, in my mindset, or what I know as far as the community, what they're asking me to do, asking me and my frat brothers to do, or community leaders that I work with, or Black Lives Matter to do, is teach them and patrol with them and to protect them. As men, as women, we have to protect our own. We have to build our own economy. And it's like I say, it's classism. So with me, economically is the only way that we can change a lot of things that's going on right now.
All right, great. Mr. Bernard, that was definitely a great answer with a lot of points to be taken out of it, just like Dr. Mocombe answered the last question. But gentlemen, two things I want to do. Not only I want to thank you both for being on the show with us. We have shared and addressed a lot of important issues and concerns, and both of you have gotten in depth about some of the problems that we are faced with in this country, and problems that not only affect me, you know, and the Black community, but also affects the white community and everybody else. And as I said earlier, if everybody does not get involved, sooner or later, people, everybody else out there, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatsoever, we are going to feel the brunt, of the effect of what's been going on here. So much has been said here. And to be honest with you, not only I would love to have you guys back on this show, because this is our first launching of this show called Social Consciousness, but just by listening to you guys, I've been taking notes, and I've also come up with at least 20 to 30 questions. That means I have enough materials here for 2 or 3 more shows based on the conversation we've been having here. And I just want to say that I'm very honored to have had you guys on this radio, and I applaud you guys for who you are, what you stand for, what you represent, and the work that you're doing out there, in the community, in order to help alleviate some of the problems that we have faced with out there, and also in order to instill a sense of pride and leadership, within the youth out there, because I definitely personally feel like the next generation could and will do better if we as adults, start addressing the problems here together, if we put out there a platform for them to follow and to go by, because the youth, as I see around me, because I work with the youth also on the middle school level, the youth is willing and able to work together, Black, Hispanic, because I work with teenagers and I see how they interact. I see how they view each other. I see how they treat each other. So we are the problem here as adults, and if we don't fix the problem, I'm afraid the youth of the next generation is not going to be able to deal with it. But we have to start fixing it. We have to start dealing with it. And again, I want to say thank you all, both of you, for being on this show. It's been a pleasure and an honor, to have you guys. And I will definitely have you guys back on sooner or later. Thank you. And we thank the audience, everybody that's listening. It's been a pleasure having you listening to us. And this was Papa Zach, and our first show was Social Consciousness. And we appreciate you guys. We love you, and have a good one. Stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can seem intense. Like breakup R&B intense.
I thought you said you loved the sweater that I got you. If you didn't,
Geico makes it easy. Just go to geico.com anytime to update or check your policy without all the extra drama.
I even had a gift receipt.